right, hey guys, Sam back with you here. Tuesday, September 4th. Oh, kind of, what are we? That's 12:30ish. So middle of the day here now. Up because it's a Tuesday. It's a traditional Tuesday. By request from our members, we're looking at the euro to the pound. Now I've got a daily chart here just to re-emphasize that it's always important to get to the daily. When you're looking at FX, you got to think longer term. That's where the best trading is. And certainly we want to look for, if we've got a wave count here, a structure that can be helpful to us. So this is pretty straightforward, right? So we've got a little, this low down here. What are we going back to? That's to July of 2015, right? So we're going back a few years, but we get a nice clear 1, 2. Then here's our, we got a pretty good push in the 1. You got to check that. So length of the 1 projected from the 2. All right, so, ideally, you'd be at the 1,618. We don't get there, but certainly. So the other contender was that you had 3, 4, 5 here. I don't think that's as likely here because I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and get all that subdivision here in the third that I would need. So you can see it here. It's pretty clear even on the daily. Looks like I've got. Oh, looks like that's 3, 4, 5 here. So let's get that down a degree or two and see if that makes sense here. So let's check that here. Let's open that up a little bit here. So if this is my 4, so first thing I'm checking for is the 3. So if that's 1, 2, it could be here coming in this way. So we'd have 1, 2. I'm a little off here on this. Yeah, given how technical that is, so the fact that I've got that, so let me open this up. So all I'm doing is taking from the swing low here to the swing high of the 1, 2. Here's the extension in the third, so I would trade this as 3, 4, 5 is in. There's the 3, A, B, C, or you could go W, X, Y, depending, I don't know that it matters, right? So here's our correction. So is it technical? So a couple of things to do. First thing, right, remember I'm still here on a daily. So wicking off the 1. There's my 2, so I wick off this 1 is not relevant here. So you can note here that if I pull from my 2 here up to the proposed 3, 50, 50. All right, so target is unreached, unrealized. They don't get it. Now it may still be there because remember the count the algo doesn't care. It's just working off of this. So this is just sitting here unrealized, right? Unrealized. So even though we've had this pullback, this can still go up and they could get it next attempt at it. That's too far for a front run. And we don't have, so equally looking, if we think about this as the third and the 4, 5 here relative to this 1, 2, if I take the length of the 1 projected from the proposed 4, we don't quite make 100%. So we're kind of in no man's land here, which suggests to me there's likely one more push up. Down for the A, so let's think about this in the context of the larger degree count. So if it's 1, 2, that is the 3. We've got the A, B, C still going in. So pulling from the 2 up to the 3, we're kind of no man's land here. You note here I put some median lines on this looking for potential zone where we might see this. We don't know how long it takes here. If it's, of course, with median lines, it could tap it here, right? So we have a potential corner pocket here. Could tap here, could tap here. We don't know, but we can at least keep this up for potentially a kind of a guide of, median lines are leading indicators. So we get this concept of time. Now this puts us out here into March of 2019. Maybe that may be too much. Now let's go down. We can go to a 4-hour here and see how this looks. Let me get us scrunched backed up here. So this is one of the reasons that, so here, this is a good example, right? So this kind of chop is so ugly that you're better to pull out larger time frame. So look, note here, if I go back to the daily, this doesn't look as crazy, right? So putting a count on that, let's go to the 3-hour, see if it's any cleaner. What are you doing with that? I wouldn't even try. What's the point? So look here. So I would just look at these swings. Are they technical? So look at that. First one I draw. Note this here. So from the 50, and they finally get target right there. So they go through all this chop. Sure, there's going to be other 50s in there, but here's the dominant swing. So swing high, swing low, there's the 50, and they stay with it, right? So that's the advantage that they have, right? So nobody getting nervous. Oh, shit, they're going to stop us out. Nobody, they don't care, right? It's just software. So it just stays short until it gets target. Now look at the reaction. Now, look what we did on that reaction, interestingly. So let's pull here. So down to our pivot low. Well, we broke the 65. Now, not uncharacteristic for a B wave to go that far. We know a B anywhere from the 50 to the 786. That's the prime zone. So let's get this off of here now. So it doesn't even really matter to me. Some sort of corrective structure here. I don't really think you need to dig into that. Right now that I'm just trading this as an A B. So some sort of a. So you got something along these lines going in, A, B, C, if that pivot is in. So A, B, C into a proposed B wave here. So where are we going to find that C? Well, we just, again, keeping it simple, we've got an algo target down here. We could also, just as we would with our Elliott hats on, just take the length of the A, project from the proposed B wave. 618 is a candidate, but here's our 100. That would be next most common. I guess I got to go to 4 hours to get that so you can see it. All right, so potentially now there's the A, B, C into the B wave. I guess I'll take that up. Let's go to blue. We'll go up a degree. So it makes sense, right? Okay, so there's our A, B, C into a proposed B wave. C, now again, doesn't have to be over here in 2019. We could hit we don't know when we hit this, but I would just keep that on the chart so that I could, boy, I can't even get it there. So again, I got to go 8 hours. That's kind of annoying. They won't let you scrunch up that much. So coming back to my larger degree, the count that I'm working from, anywhere in here is going to get interesting for the next buy. But so that becomes, can you wait that long? Right? That's a long wait. So what are we talking about there? January of 2019. Can you sit with it that long and wait for that to get there to set up? Even if it's over here, that's March of 2019. Again, FX, these are long trending markets right now, so you got to just stay with it. So where's the trade? So that you certainly have the possibility of a short here. So I like that as a short because I know where I'm wrong, so I can be out. So if we get something in that range, let's get this up down here. So depending on your size, you could give it the 786. Let's go down to our target here. If we get to target, there's 3.72 to 1. That's on the assumption you're going to give it up to the a few ticks beyond the 786. Don't like it enough, you could just take out a swing off the pivot on the assumption that B wave is in. Now we could certainly go down to the 60 minute and try and pick that proposed C wave of the B wave apart and see if that gives us enough confirmation here. Anything, kind of already had the first move. So this is going to finish, so we'd be expecting something like this. So maybe we've got 1, 2, it looks like that could be 3, 4, and maybe we're finishing with a diagonal. So let me get that up here. So that's just first glance at it without doing any measuring, just see if that looks technical. Not bad, right? So there's potential 3 ABC into the 4, and then we'd have, boy, 1, 2, boy, it's not great. 1, 2, 3 for a 1, 2, 3. So this, it's not perfect. It's not perfect. Let's pick this apart. So I can take this off. And just to declutter the chart, let's think about what we might have here. So if that's 3, 4, so we'd be finishing with a diagonal. So wrong one. I want this one. So I would take the length. I would check two things. Length of the 1 projected from the 4. So that's prime zone here. So that's a good indicator. I would check this length of the 1 projected from the 2, pulling this over. So I like that. Okay, so that looks solid. So again, now, so just first I'll always just throw up a count, and then I'll go back and check the distance, see does that look right. So 1, 2, highest probability zone for the 3. So that looks pretty solid. Well, then we go from the 2 to the 3. We've come to the 3, 8, 4, but it looks to me like this is some sort of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 if we're going to get that. So deep overlap. So it would have to be something like this with the deep overlap into the 5 here. Well, let me change that color here, and I guess this would have to go up a degree here. Let's go micro here. That'll do it. Okay, so we'd have one. So I don't love this. I don't love that. I prefer, so what's the alternate? If this is, so it's very technical up to this pivot. So I don't love the 1-2. Let's take this off. See if there's another way to think about this. So we would always in a diagonal take the start of the 1 through the pivot of the 3rd, awfully deep for the 4, awfully deep, which makes me think, well, that's more likely a 2. So let's rethink it. So possibly there's one more leg here, so which make you rethink your stop on this. So if this has got one more push up, so let's think about what that would mean. So here's the alternate that because that 1-2 is kind of ugly, this is more likely a 2. So big diagonal. So now we're here. So looking for, so I like this better. So immediately, so the most common retracement for the 4 in a diagonal is the 50. So from the start of the 1, so we know this is because we went so deep here, that 786 is more likely a 2 than a 4. So we get algo target here. So now looking at it here, we get it right on there. So did we get through that 65? Oh, well, that's a judgment call, right? So very interesting. So it gets through by just a couple of ticks. So I still think that plays better now as with a little closer examination here. While that still could be a B. So you'd have to allow for this as the alternate. So meaning the sell here, yeah, I would be, if you were thinking of selling this on the idea that I have this incorrectly, and that this is a 1, and then we're going into the 2, and we're looking for the 3. Yeah, I wouldn't take it beyond that pivot, right? So if we get beyond this pivot, then the more likely scenario here is that I've got a diagonal to finish this. So something along these lines here. So finishing perhaps with an expanding diagonal. So we have something like this to finish us. So 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I like this even better here. Now let's pull back out and see what that would do for us. So if I go back to a 4-hour, how does that affect potentially the play here into this as a B wave? Well, we'd still be pulling from swing high down to this low. Here's our target here at the 786. So I'm going to say that if I had to choose my druthers, I'd look for the short here. But again, I'm not one for trying to pick the turn. So what I would look to do is look for that reaction here. It first moved down, and then I would take the second retrace, looking for the 3, 4, 5 of the A wave. So here's the trade that I would be looking for on the short if we're going to go up there and get there. So that gives us a good technical pivot, potentially now, a technical pivot, a location for a technical pivot. For our B wave here, we get better subdivision to complete. Now, I don't know that we go there. We don't know that we've got this last little push. We could be in here, but as I break that apart and really look at it and start measuring, I think this looks better to me as an ending diagonal that's just finishing. So we'd be looking for an A, B, C to finish that 5. We want 3s in an ending diagonal like this of a C wave of a B wave. So if that's going to finish with that diagonal, I'd be looking, so potentially now the A, B is going in. There's one more push for the C up here. Then again, I wouldn't try and pick the turn. I'd wait for the first pullback, and then I'd take that, because in taking that short, look how much better that is for your risk reward, right? So if you're taking it there, now we stay with the idea of a short here, right? Pivot right on the other side of that, whatever your high is. Again, I'm hypothetical here. I don't know where that goes. But then we've got potentially now we're heading down below this low, so I'm already sitting there at 11-1. So that actually looks to me like the better trade here. So I like the low risk, because the assumption is the pivot would be in here. If I can get this as a motive wave, that confirms the idea that I'm coming off of this, that I've completed now the B wave here, and I'd be starting down to finish my C. So if I think about where that could be going, and we try and reassemble all of this, right? I've got some big targets down here. So this could go deeper. This whole thing could just have different range on it. So it could be something like this. We could go much deeper here. Again, you're trying to think, well, how could it get there? If it's going to get there, how does it get there? There's the C. There's the 4. So so you're trading the B wave, knowing that the trend is up, knowing that you're in the midst of an Elliott count that's already underway, that's fairly solid technically. So I know I'm trading into my 4, knowing that, looking for the ABC to come down here. You got to be aware of the fact of where the trend is. So that's why I would wait for this. I'd wait for that first push down, let this complete. If I get 5 down, first retrace, stop on the other side of the pivot. Maybe you get the push down for the C into the 4, but I'd be down here waiting to get on the other side of that, looking for the long down here, trying to take it back up to new highs. All right, so all of that sets up. So even something like that, so there's 9-1. So that's the best case scenario here, if you get something like that. So catching the swing down sets up the buy to catch the swing back up. Right? If you take your time with it and using these longer time frames, you really have the opportunity to do that. All right? That's what I see there, guys. All right. So with all of that, that's certainly one to watch, right? I would want to be notified if I broke this pivot. So I would set an alarm there, just an alert. If I break this pivot, I'm going up potentially now. That adds to the idea that I'm completing that diagonal to give me the C of the B before we head back down, set up for the 4. All right, guys. All right, just a reminder, give us a follow over on Twitter if you're not already. We do engage with our Twitter followers quite often, and if you're interested in this methodology and how we approach it, we have a really unique approach to how we teach it, as we're borrowing from the martial arts. So come in, go through some training. We'll start testing you to make sure that you've internalized the material. So white belt, blue belt, we've got... I'm just sitting here looking at, we've got well over 50 white belts now, and I think about 20, 25 blue belts, and several that are now going after their purple belt. So it's a structured way to approach internalizing this methodology so that you get fluent with it. And that's kind of the whole idea. So then eventually you don't need my counsel or any sensei, we call them senseis, any of our trading coaches. You don't need their counsel. You know how to do this and how to set up your own risk-reward parameters that are consistent with your trading plan. But it does take practice. All right, guys, with that, I'll wrap it, and we'll see you tomorrow.